Chapter 21: The Architect of Invisible Houses.
In a quiet valley, where mist lingered on the grass long after sunrise, there lived an architect named Nevin. He was renowned not for buildings of stone or wood, but for houses no one could see, dwellings constructed from intention, clarity, and truth. People traveled from distant cities to commission him, though many left confused. He accepted only a few clients, and he never built the same design twice. Some claimed he was a fraud. Others insisted his work transformed their lives. Those who misunderstood his houses saw nothing. Those who lived in them felt held, strengthened, aligned. One afternoon, a wealthy merchant named Corin arrived. His life was crowded. 3 homes, 2 estates, endless possessions. Yet he felt perpetually homeless, restless in every place he stayed. He sought Nevin because physical comfort had never given him inner rest. Nevin welcomed him simply, offering tea. Corin spoke of his wealth, his achievements, his properties. He described his desire for a grand new house, a retreat large enough to contain everything he loved. Nevin listened, saying nothing. When Corin finished, Nevin asked a single question. "Where does your life actually take place?" Corin blinked. "What do you mean?" Nevin repeated, "Where does your life take place? In your houses, in your work, in your possessions?" Corin hesitated. "In all of them?" Nevin shook his head. "No. Your life takes place in your awareness. A house is merely an echo of the inner room." Corin frowned. "I don't understand. I came to commission a home." Nevin nodded. "And I agreed. But the foundation will not be stone. It will be self-knowledge." He asked Corin to follow him. They walked through the valley to an open field. No tools, no materials awaited, only grass and wind. Nevin said, "Stand where you would like your front door." Corin, bewildered, stepped forward. Nevin gestured. "Describe your home." Corin began confidently. Large entry hall, high ceilings, many rooms, grand windows. As he spoke, Nevin interrupted gently. "Describe not what you wish to impress others with. Describe what you need to live well." Corin faltered. "I need space." Nevin raised an eyebrow. "For what? Noise, distraction, or reflection?" Corin swallowed. He realized he had never asked himself. Nevin handed him a small notebook. "For 1 week, write not what you want, but what suffocates you." Corin lived in the valley, journaling reluctantly at first. He filled pages with small complaints: workload, people, obligations. But as days passed, deeper truths emerged. Fear of irrelevance, loneliness masked by status, exhaustion from chasing admiration, emptiness beneath abundance. On the 7th day, he returned. Nevin skimmed the pages. "Good. Now we can build." He walked to the field and traced lines in the grass with his foot, not of walls, but of qualities. "This is the first room," he said, "a space where you may be without performance." He marked a second. "This is where you rest without guilt." A third. "This room has no mirrors, so you cannot study yourself." A fourth. "This room has no doors, only windows, so you can see others clearly." Corin watched, confused but attentive. Nevin continued, "Invisible houses are built from inner architecture, from boundaries of value, windows of perspective, rooms of meaning, a structure that protects not the body, but the soul. He asked Corin to step into the invisible home. Corin obeyed, feeling slightly ridiculous. "Walk," Nevin said. Corin moved through the imaginary space. To his surprise, emotions stirred. Ease in one area, discomfort in another, longing in another corner. The house seemed to speak. "What do you feel?" Nevin asked. Corin answered, "I feel where I am dishonest, where I fear, where I pretend." Nevin smiled. "Then the house is already being built." They spent days defining rooms, not with walls, but with truth. A room for grieving, a room for joy, a room for solitude, a room free of memory, a room where he could speak without consequence, a room where he could listen without defense. No bricks, no beams, only clarity. Nevin explained, "Most people live in houses they never designed, structures built from expectation, fear, culture, family. They spend their lives trying to decorate what was never theirs, but when you design from within, every corner becomes sanctuary." Corin asked, "How will I live in a house that is not physical?" Nevin replied, "You already do. Your mind is your home. You wake in its rooms. You dream in its chambers. If you do not shape it consciously, you inherit a blueprint that harms you." Corin realized his inner home had been chaotic, cluttered with guilt, obligation, inherited values that never fit. Nevin told him, "The purpose of an invisible house is to live without being lost." They crafted rituals, a morning doorway, entered with intention, a garden where ideas rested before being acted upon, a library filled only with what nourished, a fire to destroy beliefs that had expired, a single chair for presence. Corin found himself changing. When he returned to his physical homes, they felt foreign, ornate shells without meaning. He noticed spaces that no longer resonated, possessions he no longer needed, noise he no longer wanted. Finally, Nevin asked, "Are you ready for the final room?" Corin nodded. Nevin drew a circle in the dirt. "This is the only room that exists everywhere." "What room is this, Corin?" "The room of being." Corin entered the circle. Nothing happened. There were no symbols, no visions. Yet, within seconds, his thoughts quieted. Something inside him relaxed, a simplicity he had never felt. Nevin spoke softly. "This is the room that exists in every moment. If you allow it, you do not come to it. You drop into it. It is the foundation beneath all foundations, the house that travels with you." Corin understood. Nothing external could hold him if he could not hold himself. Before leaving, he asked Nevin, "Will others see this house?" Nevin replied, "Only through how you live." Corin returned to his world. He sold many properties, not from asceticism, but alignment. His new physical dwelling was simple, yet intentional. But the real transformation was internal. He carried rooms within him, places he could retreat to, listen within, release from, and return through. People felt peace around him, not because of where he lived, but because he knew where his true house was. The architect of invisible houses teaches that home is not a building, it is a state of inner arrangement. To live well is not to decorate walls, but to design the mind. To feel at home is not to possess space, but to become space. Invisible houses cannot be seen, only felt, and once built, you never wander homeless again.
Chapter 22. The River That Remembered.
There was a river that flowed through 3 kingdoms. In the first, it was worshipped. In the second, it was used. In the third, it was ignored. Yet no matter how people treated it, the river continued its endless journey, from mountain to sea, carrying memories like silt. Villagers near its source claimed that the river remembered every life that touched it, not through words, but through vibration. They said that if you listened carefully, you could hear the river sing your name, not as you were, but as you could be. Most dismissed this. Rivers were rivers, but those who were quiet enough sometimes felt something familiar, like recognition, in the whisper of the current. One of these seekers was Layla. Layla carried a weight she could not name. She felt haunted, not by grief, but by possibility. She sensed a version of herself just beyond reach, clearer, fuller, more true. She didn't know what held her back, only that something inside was waiting. Her grandmother told her, "The river remembers what you forget. If you want to know your truth, go to its mouth, where memory meets surrender." So Layla followed the water. At the first kingdom, she found temples built along the banks. Priests chanted. Offerings floated. The river was holy, yet she felt nothing. People prayed aloud, but their voices drowned out everything else. The river could not be heard. At the second kingdom, she found merchants washing wool, fishermen hauling nets, children swimming. The river was useful, yet she felt nothing. People were too busy to notice the current beneath their tasks. The river had no listener. At the third kingdom, she found silence. People barely glanced at the water. They took its presence for granted. The river flowed unseen, a forgotten companion. Layla continued toward the sea. The land grew quiet. Birds replaced voices. Trees replaced houses. The river widened, slower now, as though deep in thought. Layla felt a tug in her chest, a subtle recognition, like remembering a dream. By dusk, she reached the mouth, where river dissolved into ocean. Whispering, she knelt and whispered, "What do you remember of me?" The water lapped softly. At first, nothing. Then faintly, she heard herself. Not her voice, her truth. It came not as words, but as feeling, a memory she had never lived, yet recognized instantly. She saw herself as a child, before fear, before comparison, before hesitation. She remembered a purity she had forgotten, not innocence, but wholeness. The river held it still. Tears rose. "How long have you kept this for me?" she asked. The water pulsed, a gentle yes. She dipped her hands into the current. Images flickered inside her mind. Choices abandoned, courage withheld, paths she never walked. Not as punishment, but as possibilities still alive. The river had never judged her. It had simply waited. She whispered, "Why show me this now?" Because she had finally become quiet enough to hear. She sat for hours, listening. The river showed her that memory was not only backward, it was forward. The river did not just remember where she had been. It remembered who she was meant to become. She saw potential woven through time, not fate, but resonance. Every longing she'd ignored had left an imprint in the water, waiting for her return. Every time she felt called towards something without knowing why, it was the river speaking, reminding her. She asked, "How do I reclaim what I lost?" The river responded through sensation, not by chasing, but by choosing. The current tugged softly, an invitation. Layla stepped into the water. Cold, electric, alive. As the current wrapped around her, she felt timelines merge. Past, present, future. Not as separate, but as a single unfolding. She understood. Nothing is ever lost, only postponed. The river does not forget your truth when you forget it. It carries it forward until you are ready to receive it again. Layla surrendered. She allowed the water to pull her, not outward, but inward, into memory. She felt herself dissolve into simplicity, free from expectation, identity, time. When she emerged, she felt lighter, not because something had been taken, but because something had been returned. Her grandmother had been right. The river remembers for you. Before leaving, Layla asked, "Will you speak to me again?" The water answered without sound, "I always have." She returned to her village with a new clarity. She no longer sought meaning. She followed resonance. She listened to body, to intuition, to silence. In every stream, cup, raindrop, she felt the river whispering, reminding her of her unbroken continuity. Years later, when she felt lost, she returned to flowing water, not to ask, but to remember. The river that remembered teaches that your truth is never destroyed, only submerged. That identity is not built, but uncovered. That your deepest self is held safely in the current of existence, waiting patiently for your readiness. You do not find yourself, you return to yourself. And when you do, the river smiles, for it has waited lifetimes